Good morning, everyone, and happy Thursday. Today's January 28th, and we are here for our second read aloud of the week. Now, if you remember on Tuesday, we read a text called Sam and the Lucky Money. And I told you that this week we will be focusing on the illustrations in our texts and how those illustrations help us to understand and make meaning from the text. All right, so this is going to be our second text of the week that we're going to really focus in on those illustrations. And we're going to talk about and think about why the illustrator chose to illustrate certain pictures in certain ways throughout the story, as well as how those illustrations help us to understand the lesson or the message that comes from the story. So today's story is called Those Shoes, and our author is Mary Beth Boltz, and our illustrator is Noah Z. Jones. So I want you to take a look at the cover first. I want you to take a look. We have our main character, and our main character's name is Jeremy, and he really wants those shoes. I want you to take a look at the cover and see if you can figure out what shoes am I talking about that Jeremy really wants. Okay, now as you see, we have some characters over here. And this right here is Jeremy. I want you to figure out, kind of take some time, what do you notice is the difference between those groups of characters? What's the difference in these boys and Jeremy? There's a few different things that you could point out. And I also want you to pay very close attention to the faces of the characters. Okay? So as we read, we're going to really dig into the illustrations and figure out how they help us to understand the story and how they kind of tell the story without even the words. All right, so let's get started. Those shoes. I have dreams about those shoes. Black high tops, 2 white stripes. All right, so here, let's see if I can center it around here for you guys. So my first question is going to be, who do you think is telling the story? Who is telling the story? Do we have a narrator who is not a character in the story that's telling the story? Or is it one of the characters that's telling the story? And how do you know? Okay, so I have dreams about those shoes. Black high tops, 2 white stripes. Okay, again, paying very close attention to the illustrations. Grandma, I want them. There's no room for want around here. Just need, Grandma says. And what you need are new boots for winter. Okay, so Grandma tells Jeremy that there's no room for want, just need. What do you think she means by that? There's no room for want in this house, just need. What do you think she means by that? Brandon T. comes to school in those shoes. He says he's the fastest runner now, not me. I was always the fastest before those shoes came along. Nate comes to school in those shoes. Antonio and I count how many times Nate goes to the bathroom. 7 times in one day, just so he can walk up and down the hall real slow. Okay, so let's think about Brandon T. He comes to school in those shoes, and now he says he's the fastest runner. Do you think that Brandon T is really the fastest runner now? Do you think that he's really the fastest just because of those shoes? Let's keep going. Next, Alan Jacoby and Terrence each get a pair. Then one day, in the middle of kickball, one of my shoes comes apart. Looks like you could use a new pair, Jeremy, Mr. Alfrey, the guidance counselor, says. He brings out a box of shoes and other stuff he has for kids who need things. He helps me find the only shoes that are my size. Velcro. Like the ones my little cousin Marshall wears. They have an animal on them from a cartoon I don't think any kid ever watched. When I come back to the classroom, Alan Jacoby takes one look at my Mr. Alfrey shoes and laughs, and so do Terrence, Brandon T., and everyone else. The only kid not laughing is Antonio Parker. At home, Grandma says, "How kind of Mr. Alfrey." I nod and turn my back. I'm not going to cry about any dumb shoes, but when I'm writing my spelling words later, every word looks like the word shoes, and my grip is so tight on my pencil, I think it might bust. Let's look at our post-it note here. What do you think about the kids laughing at Jeremy? How do you feel about that? And how do you think Jeremy felt? And why do you think Antonio Parker isn't laughing? So the whole class is laughing at Jeremy and his shoes, except one kid, Antonio Parker. Why do you think Antonio is not laughing at him? On Saturday, Grandma says, "Let's check out those shoes you're wanting so much. I got a little bit of money set aside. Might be enough, you never know." At the shoe store, Grandma turns those shoes over so she can check the price. When she sees it, she sits down heavy. "Maybe they wrote it down wrong," I say. Grandma shakes her head. Then I remember the thrift shops. What if there's a rich kid who outgrew his or got 2 pairs for Christmas and had to give one of them away? We ride the bus to the first thrift shop. Black cowboy boots, pink slippers, sandals, high heels. Every kind of shoes except the ones I want. We ride the bus to the second thrift shop. Not a pair of those shoes in sight. Around the corner is the third thrift shop. I see something in the window. So let's think for a second about what a thrift shop is. Think about what a thrift shop is. So a thrift shop is a store that sells used clothing, okay, for low prices. So think about why Jeremy would want to go to a thrift shop. Why do you think the thrift shop is so important to him instead of just a regular shop? Black shoes with 2 white stripes, high tops, $2.50. Those shoes. My heart is pounding hard as I take off my shoes and hitch up my baggy socks. "How exciting," Grandma says. "What size are they?" I shove my foot into the first shoe, curling my toes to get my heel in. I don't know, but I think they fit. Grandma kneels on the floor and feels for my toes at the end of the shoe. "Oh, Jeremy," she says, "I can't spend good money on shoes that don't fit." I pull the other shoe on and try to walk around. "They're okay," I say, holding my breath and praying that my toes will fall off right then and there. But my toes don't fall off. I buy them anyway with my own money, and I squeeze them on and limp to the bus stop. So Jeremy limps when he leaves the thrift shop. What does that mean if he's limping? What does that mean? What does it mean to limp? And why do his feet hurt so bad? He got those shoes that he's been wanting, but now his feet hurt so bad. Why are they hurting? At home a few days later, Grandma puts a new pair of snow boots in my closet and doesn't say a word about my 2 big feet shuffling around in my 2 small shoes. "Sometimes shoes stretch," I say. Grandma gives me a hug. I check every day, but those shoes don't stretch. I have to wear my Mr. Alfrey's to school instead. One day during math, I glance at Antonio's shoes. One of them is taped up, and his feet look smaller than mine. After school, I head to the park to think. Antonio is there, the only kid who didn't laugh at my Mr. Alfrey shoes. So let's think for a minute. Are you wondering what Jeremy is thinking? He goes to the park. He's thinking about Antonio. What is he thinking about Antonio? And what do you think he's going to do? What do you think he might do? We shoot baskets. A loose piece of tape on Antonio's shoe smacks the concrete every time he jumps. I think I'm not going to do it. We leap off the swings. I'm not going to do it. We race from one end of the playground to the other. I'm not going to do it, I say. Do what? Antonio says, breathing hard. What do you think he's not going to do? Grandma calls me for supper and invites Antonio over too. After supper, he spies my shoes. How come you don't wear them? Antonio asks. I shrug. My hands are sweaty. I can feel him wishing those shoes were his. That night, I am awake for a long time thinking about Antonio. When morning comes, I try on my shoes one last time. What do you think he's going to do? Before I can change my mind, the shoes are in my coat. Snow is beginning to fall as I run across the street to Antonio's apartment. I put the shoes in front of his door, push the doorbell, and run. I want you to kind of pause here and really take a close look at the illustration. Look at how the illustrator did the illustration all across the page. So on this side is Antonio at his apartment and him seeing the shoes for the first time. And if we track all across the page, we see Jeremy running. But Antonio doesn't see Jeremy running away. At school, Antonio is smiling big in his brand new shoes. I feel happy when I look at his face and mad when I look at Mr. Alfrey's shoes. But later, when it's time for recess, something happens. Everywhere there is snow. Leave your shoes in the hall and change into your boots, the teacher announces. Leave your shoes in the hall. It's then I remember what I have in my backpack. New boots. New black boots that no kid has ever worn before. Standing in line to go to recess, Antonio leans forward and says, "Thanks." I smile and give him a nudge. Let's race. And that is the end of our story. All right, so I'm going to bring us over to our writing assignment now so you guys can see what you have to do for writing. All right, so here is our writing. So remember, on the first slide, you will find the video. If you need to go back and watch the read aloud, you may. The second slide is where you will find your writing assignment. So your writing assignment is going to be found on this second slide. And if you see, it says those shoes. Think about the illustrations or pictures in this story. How do they help us understand that Jeremy really wants those shoes? Now, if you look down here, it gives you a little helpful hint. It says rewatch the story to help you remember. So let's read it again. Think about the illustrations in this story. How do they help us understand what Jeremy really wants those shoes? All right, remember to start all of your sentences with a capital letter and make sure they all have punctuation at the end. I want you to try to write at least 2 sentences to explain how the illustrations in this story help us understand that Jeremy really wants those shoes. All right, good luck. If you need help, just send me a message or jump on a Google Meet, and I'd be happy to help you. If you don't need help, good luck, and I will see you guys next week for another story. Have a great weekend.